NiSource is committing $28 billion to a massive long-term growth strategy, with nearly $7 billion carved out specifically for data center infrastructure. This capital is aimed at supporting an 8 to 9% EPS CAGR through 2033. EPS, or earnings per share, measures a company's profitability, while CAGR, or compound annual growth rate, represents the steady rate of return over a specific time period. This research document details NiSource's landmark data center agreement with Amazon in northern Indiana. To serve Amazon's cloud footprint, NiSource structured a dedicated GenCo build-out. A GenCo, or generation company, is a subsidiary entity created specifically to build and operate power plants for a dedicated customer. This specific deal structure is projected to return over $1 billion in savings to existing retail customers over the life of the contract, proving that long-term, large load commitments can drive corporate growth while lowering everyday ratepayer bills. Look closely at the ground-level execution across Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and Kentucky, and a clear operational gap appears. In these active markets, agile competitors are routinely securing the largest, most lucrative data center interconnection deals before Columbia Gas can position itself as the primary energy partner. Billions of dollars in corporate capital mean very little if local distribution companies lack a standardized system to intercept incoming hyperscale requests, evaluate grid capacity, and draft contracts at the speed of tech development. To keep that $28 billion allocation from sitting idle, Columbia Gas needs a strict codified local playbook to integrate massive new loads. This state analysis report shows the explosive scale of the opportunity in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Analysts are tracking over $90 billion of announced or developing data center and gas-fired generation projects in Pennsylvania alone, running parallel to a massive pipeline of new, privately owned natural gas plants in Ohio. Yet, the flagship generation projects driving this demand are currently being spearheaded by entities outside the Columbia network. In Pennsylvania, joint ventures between PPL and Blackstone are moving forward, while in Ohio, developers are partnering with AEP to exploit specific sales tax breaks for their private power needs. Columbia's current position is hampered by structural vulnerabilities. Central Ohio is already facing documented infrastructure capacity strains driven by early data center demand. Compounding these physical limits is a regulatory gap. Columbia Gas of Ohio currently lacks a widely visible, PUCO-approved large load gas tariff to protect existing ratepayers from stranded assets. PUCO stands for the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, the state agency regulating utility services. Securing these highly concentrated loads requires an immediate operational pivot. Columbia must formalize an aggressive BTM strategy. BTM, or behind the meter, refers to energy generation and storage systems installed directly on the customer's property, bypassing the traditional external grid. Coupling this strategy with tight data-sharing partnerships with state economic development agencies allows Columbia to steer incoming hyperscalers directly toward gas-ready, high-capacity sites. Data centers do not wait for utilities to catch up. When developers encounter slow interconnection queues or opaque capacity limits, they finance their own infrastructure or partner with competing providers, permanently excluding reactive utility companies from the most lucrative revenue clusters in the region. Further east, the friction changes from raw competition to severe regulatory scrutiny. In Virginia and Maryland, the sheer scale of the energy required by local data center alleys is colliding directly with organized environmental opposition and widespread public pushback over local air quality and water usage. This Maryland policy brief details exactly how rigid those constraints are. Under the Climate Solutions Now Act, the state is locked into strict greenhouse gas reduction targets, prompting the PSC to steer utility policy heavily toward electrification and away from new gas expansion. The PSC, or Public Service Commission, is the state regulatory body that oversees utility operations. At the same time, Virginia lawmakers face fierce electoral pressure from constituents angry over rising power bills and the emissions footprint of new data centers. Succeeding in these constrained corridors requires utility companies to completely change how they pitch new infrastructure. Large load gas proposals only survive regulatory review if they are engineered as decarbonizing tools. This means deploying hydrogen-ready assets or high-efficiency CHP systems. CHP, or combined heat and power, is a highly efficient process that captures and utilizes the excess thermal energy normally lost during electricity generation. In the Mid-Atlantic, prioritizing emissions reductions and community impact is an absolute requirement. An integrated ESG strategy is the strict prerequisite for securing site approval. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, a set of standards used to evaluate a company's operational impact on the planet and local communities. NiSource already uses advanced technology to manage customer support and field operations. Now, it must turn that computational power toward large-load economic development. Deploying artificial intelligence is the operational bridge required to connect billions in corporate capital with rapid, precise execution by state-level teams. The immediate upgrades involve feeding raw grid and GIS data into predictive models. GIS, or Geographic Information System, is a framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing spatial data. By layering this information, AI can dynamically score potential industrial sites, run accurate load forecasts, and instantly draft responses to complex developer RFPs. An RFP is a request for proposal, a formal document issued by a client asking vendors to submit solutions and pricing. This data-rich approach yields immediate political leverage. By sharing AI-generated heat maps and capacity models with state regulators and economic development boards, Columbia Gas shifts from being a passive utility responding to orders to a proactive architect determining where massive industrial growth actually happens. Tech giants rely on extreme data precision to build their infrastructure. They expect the same rigor from the utilities powering them. Integrating this level of analytics ensures Columbia Gas becomes the indispensable partner for hyperscalers, closing the execution gap and translating a $28 billion corporate vision into ground-level reality.